Hello, Dreamcatchers, and welcome to another exciting day in the Writer's Haven. I am your host, Helena, and with us today is author Stephanie Simon. Stephanie's debut novel about her highlights the joys and pain of sisterhood, femininity, and the search for identity that rings true in the lives of today's woman. The novel follows college chums Cheryl, Sammy, Angela, and Danielle as each woman takes on the challenges of life in search of the happiness they know they deserve. To hear more about the storyline and the author's process, let's give a warm and hearty welcome to author Stephanie Simon. Welcome to the Writer's Haven, Stephanie.
Well, thank you for having me.
It is great to have you with us today. Again, I'm sorry that I missed your big book signing at Busboys and Poets, the one in Hyattsville, Maryland?
Yes, it was in Hyattsville.
Yeah, and that was your big debut for your first book.
It was. It was a great time. We had a great time at Hyattsville and Busboys and Poets.
Yeah, that's a great venue. And you know, before we start talking about your writer's journey, I want to go all the way to the beginning in terms of your career choice. I know you were in corporate America. And at some point you decided that you wanted to go in another direction in terms of your creativity and your writing, because I know you're also a fabulous cook. and there's other gardening, there's other things that you do to really get those creative juices flowing in something that is pleasing to you. And many authors do that, many artists do that. But what is it that catapulted you into moving into the direction of writing?
That's a great question. And really, I started writing this book just as a journal to myself, as a story that I was writing to myself. I never really intended for this to be a book, and never really intended for this to be published. It was something that I kept writing. It was a story that I had in my head, and I just kept writing it. And I thought that at some point I needed to tell the world about the story. And so that's what happened. That's how it ended up being there. It just really happened that way.
And how long did it take for you to write the book?
Actually, it took about 8 years.
Okay. Okay.
On and off writing, on and off journaling, on and off doing stuff, because I wasn't sure that I was going to write a book. I wasn't sure what I was doing with it. I didn't have a writer's background. I didn't have the credibility. I didn't have this huge, literary background. And so I kept going, not sure what I'm going to do with this. And I would put it down for a year and walk away from it. But I always came back to it. I always had to continue the story. I always had to continue writing it. So over those 8 years, I really just developed the characters, developed the storyline, developed what it was, and then it became a novel.
Okay, so you were just a novice and you jumped into your writing journey without any prior experience in writing, basically, is how you put it together. So the traditional things that writers would do in terms of outlining their stories, character development, and plot strategizing wasn't something that played into your writing.
I think it did play into my writing, but I don't think I knew that. I didn't have that background. This story came to me. It was something that just came to me. I'd been traveling for work. I was really tired. I was at my sister's house, and I decided to take a nap in the backyard. I woke up and the story was in my head. I actually grabbed a notebook, a yellow notebook, and a pen, and wrote 23 handwritten pages, and it was basically the core of the story. I knew the beginning, end, and middle of the story pretty much. I knew the names of the characters pretty much. So it was really something that came to me. What I realized later on is that I did do character development. I did do plot strategy. I didn't know it at the time, though, because each one of those characters has a very deep backstory.
I mean, it's obvious that you did, because it would be very difficult to write if you didn't. And what came out of that process is very good writing. So that's one of the things that I really want to pull out of you and have our dream catchers realize that you can be in different places in your journey of writing, but that doesn't mean that in that process that you're not evolving as a writer or that you haven't arrived as a writer, because different people get there in different ways.
Yeah, I got to it in what I call a very non-traditional way. First of all, thank you, by the way, for the compliment on the writing in the book. But About Her really became something that compelled me to write. I often call it a gift from God because I don't know where else I can explain that it came from. It really came from inside of me and it came out. And I honestly struggled with the fact that I didn't have a literary background. I didn't have writing courses. I didn't have that. I struggled with that for a long time. And that's something that I think all of us go through, whether or not you come to this work with credibility. And I didn't think I had credibility. And what I realize now is, just as you said, we all come to this journey different ways and different places, and it doesn't mean that you're not credible.
Right. Now, the title, About Her, I love the title. And when I read where it came from, that was even more intriguing. You want to talk about that a little bit?
So About Her really came from looking at these characters and deciding which one of these characters was the story really about. And I made a conscious decision at some point to not have a quote-unquote traditional main character.
A protagonist, yeah.
I decided that I wanted to let the reader determine which character this was about. Or if the character is about her, the reader. It could be that as well. So I wanted the reader to interpret the title and the characters in their own world and in their own way.
And I really do think that you achieved that. So, as I mentioned before, you start off in corporate America. How much of the work that you did in that industry influenced your writing?
I don't think it influenced my writing. I think it influenced my process.
Okay. Okay.
I think what it
on the business side or the creative side?
On the creative side,
Okay.
because I can take some of the things that I have from a corporate America, project management, managing time, managing deadlines, managing multiple things going on at the same time. I can take that and I use that to manage the process, and honestly, it's the process of publishing the book and the whole self-publishing process. So I use that background to get me through the self-publishing process, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had to learn a lot in a really short amount of time. I had to leverage a lot of resources, and then I had to do a lot of things simultaneously and manage some deadlines.
Right. So let's talk about the art of publishing as a self-publisher. What are some of the challenges that you came into as you started on the journey of self-publishing?
The first challenge I came into was, for me, information overload. There is a lot of information out there on the internet, and not all of it's good information. So the first challenge is really finding what's credible information, who can you go to, where can you go and get really good, credible information that you can follow along as a self-published author, whether it's on the internet or their groups or associations. So that was the first challenge. So I also am accused of doing a ton of research before I move forward. I need to know if I've looked at everything. So researching was one of the first challenges. And once I've made some decisions about what I'd researched, I think the next challenge was pulling the book together. Now you have to...
You mean in terms of formatting?
Getting cover, getting all of the things right, getting it edited. All of that next became the challenge of getting that done and finding those resources. But very luckily, I have a great big family and a great big friend network that helped out a lot and made it a lot easier for me.
Okay, and did you think about approaching some of the major publications or publishers with the book? getting an agent or a publicist or any of that?
I actually didn't. I never really thought about that. I wanted to get the book out, and I knew that if I went the more traditional way, that might never happen, or it may take a really long time for it to happen. And once I made the decision to go ahead and publish the book, I wanted it out. I wanted it published. I wanted to be able to get it out in the world pretty quickly. So I didn't really contemplate doing the traditional publishing route.
Did you get an editor as part of that process?
I did.
Okay.
I did get an editor as part of that process. I got an editor as part of that process. I've gotten lots of other feedback as part of that process, but it's been a really big learning journey. And there's really good sources out there, but you do have to search them out.
Okay, and just so that our dream catchers can see the cover again, I love your cover design. How did you come across this particular design? Was it an artist that did it for you specifically, or how did that process go?
I had a very specific design in mind for the cover. That design, as a matter of fact, and well, very close. I wanted the 4 women on the front of the cover. And actually my son has somebody that works for him that's a graphic artist, and I got in touch with her. We talked. She hadn't read the book at the time or read anything about it. We talked on the phone, and I told her what I wanted. She came back with some sketches, 3 or 4 of them. We talked about them, and then she emailed me the next day and says, wait a minute, I have a new concept, and I want you to see it. And I looked at that concept, and it was that, and I loved it. I loved the freshness of it. I loved the colors of it. I loved the fact that the colors at the bottom of their dresses all mingled together in a way that talked about the interconnectedness of the women.
Okay, yeah, it's very well done. So we talked about challenges. What are some of the great aspects of self-publishing that you treasure and relish?
Some of the things that I really relish is control. So I get the control. I get the control over what it looks like, how it gets done, whether it's what size the book is, all of that stuff. So the control was really a place that I relished, that I really felt really good about, because I could control that piece. The other thing that I really loved about the self-publishing piece of it is that it gave me the experience that I wanted to own. If I wanted to own the ISBNs, if I wanted to own the publishing part of it, if I wanted it in my names and the copyrights. So again, ownership is really, really cool. But the other thing that was really wonderful about it is timing. I could get it done on my timeline and with my resources, and that is big if you really want a certain product out there in a certain period of time, that you have control and you can get it from a timing perspective. And the fact that I love to learn. I love to learn, so I've learned a lot of new skills. I've met a ton of new people. I've met you, and I've met others in the business, and it really has opened up my network of people and people that I know.
Okay, and how did you navigate the printing and distribution aspect of it?
So I actually have it uploaded and printed through a print-on-demand source. So I have it done through print-on-demand, and that print-on-demand source allows it to go on Amazon or on other sites where people can order the book and have it printed on demand.
Wherever books are sold.
Wherever books are sold, and have it printed on demand, and get that and have it done.
Okay, what about marketing? As a self-published author, what are some of the things that you've learned about that aspect of self-publishing and the business of it?
I've learned that you have to do it all.
Indeed.
Yeah, so you have to do it all, and you really need to have someone, if you don't already have an idea about marketing, you need to have somebody help you with the marketing aspect of it. It's more than just selling your book. It's about building your brand. It's about building a network. It's about having multiple channels. What does your social media look like?
Right.
What is your what do you have surround the book look like? What's your book launch look like? Are there book signings? So what I've learned about marketing is that it is in and of itself another job,
Right.
and that it is as important, if not more important, than the actual writing of the book. How are you going to market it? Where are you going to be? How do you get brand ambassadors to market for you? Getting reviews on Amazon and other
endorsements.
Endorsements.
Yeah. You have endorsements on this book.
I don't yet have endorsements on this, but I am working on getting an endorsement from a well-known author, so she has it in her hands now, and she's working on it, so I'm hopeful that she will give me an endorsement.
So that'll come out in the second edition, or the second printing, second printing of the book. Okay, so the characters are, as I mentioned in the intro, they're school chums, or women who kind of grew up together. But then the book talks about their individual journeys, struggles, challenges, pain, and I also said in the intro how that's kind of the woman of today. You know, these are the types of issues that we can either find ourselves experiencing, or at least one of our girlfriends experiencing. When you started writing the book and you had the concept of the book, where did the characters come from? And the reason why I asked this question, I almost asked this of every author that writes a book that's similar to this, not that any of it is autobiographical, but that, we of course pull from life experiences or the experiences of others. And I'm just curious to know if some of that played into your character development for these 4 characters.
It did. So whether it's part of me, part of people I know and have known in my life, I think each one of the characters is an amalgamation of experiences of people that I've known and have seen and have experienced in my life. So it's not one person, and at the same time, each one of these characters stand alone in her own character, her own personality. So while they have pieces of other people that I know, and maybe even me, each one of these characters stand alone in their own personality and their own personhood.
But there's a message, I think, within each story. And so as an author, was it important to you not only to tell the stories, which may some of it be personal experiences of people that you know, was it important to you as an author to just kind of have those kinds of stories and life experience resonate through these characters so that people reading it could connect? Or was it just the literal of just writing these characters and developing them into just the story and not necessarily the bigger picture or bigger message?
It's definitely the bigger message. It's definitely a much bigger message. My hope is that people will read it and see themselves, see others, and take away some lessons and take away some messages for themselves and for others. Because I do believe that there are messages in each one of their stories. I do believe that there is a lesson to be learned in each one of their stories. So it is definitely about the bigger picture. It's definitely about a message for each one of them, and for us as the reader. So again, it's about the reader going in and diving in and figuring out which one of these character or characters speak most to them and give them back what they need and give them what they're looking for.
Okay. Are there any authors in modern day literature or before that inspires your writing?
You know, I've read a ton of authors in my career, over my lifetime, and I think I like authors that really give me a message. But I also like authors that entertain me at the same time. I've read, anywhere from, Terry McMillan, Pearl Cleage, Connie Briscoe, Tina McElroy, Anza, to name a few. So I've read all of their stuff, and if I go, back a few years, I remember reading a lot of J. California Cooper and some other things back in the day. And all of those things I think resonated with me because I think all of those authors have a message and have a style of writing that I enjoy.
Okay, so you mentioned Terry McMillan as one of the authors that inspires your writing, and she's written a few books that have featured women protagonists in the storyline, and very similar to yours, is each one having their own joys and pains of womanhood that kind of is spilled out on the page. How difficult is it now? If Terry was sitting here, I'd be asking her the same question. How difficult, or maybe it's not difficult, but what are some of the challenges that you found in writing about women and the issues that you've brought up in your book, just kind of whatever research that you may have done for specific issues, and then just kind of developing that into the character scheme that you've developed, and then having that flow into the page? How challenging or not challenging was that?
It was challenging for some of the characters because some of their experiences were really foreign to me. So it really created a need for me to dig deep and to do some research to understand that challenge and understand how to make it feel real. So it didn't feel like it's being told to you from somebody else. But how is it, that it's really authentic? So Angela is one of those characters that I had to really dig deep around and do some research around and understand, because many of her challenges are foreign to me. And the same thing I think a little bit with Cheryl. Cheryl had some challenges that I had to talk to people about, and talk to them about without really them knowing I was talking to them about.
That you were doing research.
Research, and so it really did require sometimes that you had to think through, how do you make this feel authentic? How do you make it feel like it is coming from that character and not from just kind of observing it from a third person? And I think that the challenge there was the wording, the pace of the conversation, the pace of situations and context.
Okay, and certainly it's something that's easier to do when you're writing nonfiction. But in fiction, I'm always fascinated by writers who are able to meld women's issues and real life fictional characters in their stories. So what are some of the golden nuggets that you would offer to aspiring writers?
Write. That's the first one, is write. The second golden nugget, I would say, is one that is something I'm still embracing, is you can do this. It's difficult sometimes, it's challenging sometimes, but you can do this. This is something you can do. And the other golden nugget is reach out and explore the networks that are there. Make sure you have a broad network of people that are going to help you and assist you, and take advantage of all of the resources that are there.
Okay, great. Those are excellent. Well, dream catchers, I am sure that you enjoyed our discussion with author Stephanie Simon, and follow her writer's journey on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for continued inspiration. Catch us next week for a chat with author Alicia Proctor, who will be here to discuss her book, Jazz, Java, and Jesus, Christian Devotions to Soothe Your Soul. You definitely want to tune in to hear about how to structure nonfiction work and hear answers to the ever-present writer's question, where do I begin? Which sometimes with nonfiction writing is a little bit more difficult and challenging than fiction writing. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Writers Haven Show. And also tune in to our YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Sonos, Alexa, SoundCloud, Spotify, and you can hit all those places to stream our shows. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time in the Haven. Until then, catch fire on purpose.
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. Gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Oh, no. Okay, quick. Oh, yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
This is the moment I knew. His future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Hey, did you know 2.4 million loving cats and dogs in shelters and rescues need our help to find a home? Let's go to theshelterpetproject.org and meet if you are in a shelter near you. Harlow, oh, she's one great listener who loves to hear all your stories. My kind of cat. Cerulo is a sweet, goofy boy who's eager to please. Sounds just like another dog I know. So go to theshelterpetproject.org, search your local shelters and rescues, and go for a cuddle with your next best friend. Adopt.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education? What are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else? Or will you dare do something different? Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills. The smarts? Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget. That'd be cool. Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself? What are you gonna make of me?
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Open up your books to page 360.
Did you just look at your phone while you was in class? You played yourself.
Talking about inspirational quotes.
You gotta believe in yourself. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Louise, can you give me an example of an inspirational quote?
Don't play yourself. The key is to make it.
And who said that?
I did. Now that's a major key alert.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at getschool.com.
Green hat. Red hat. Oops. Red shirt. Blue shirt. Yellow shirt. Oops. Yellow pants. Red pants. Green pants. Oops.